Welcome back to Between Two Cars, your host, Kyle Orr. And we are here with Matt, the Walrus Maxwell, and a special, very, very special guest of ours, Mr. Tommy Summerfield.
Or alias.
Tony
Stubblefield.
Tony Stubblefield.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I've watched your podcast for the last year or so.
Well, we've tried to get you on many times, but, you know,
my phone wasn't ringing.
well,
So,
anyway,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
we saw that, what was that, it's the infamous geezer. What was that, what we saw you on?
Oh, with Mr. Reynolds,
Yes.
we were on our trip to Florida, and we were the Geezer Gators.
Geezer Gators.
The Geezer Gator Tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. It was kind of spontaneous. We had a little fun. We hit 1,000 views, and Mike was so excited. He's like, Tony, he goes, I think we went viral. So it was hilarious, yeah.
That's what makes it all fun, though.
Mm-hmm.
That's when that was in 2020 when Trump was running, and we thought, hey, this is shoo-in, right? Because we're going from Springfield to Florida, and we're counting Trump signs, right? Trump, Biden signs. We counted 3 Biden signs, and we counted thousands of Trump signs, and so we were shocked when, obviously, the results. Yeah. I know they didn't cheat or anything, but
Yeah, I think everybody was shocked by that result. But that's in 2020, we're in 2024,
so
right?
Yeah, the results are in, and they keep coming in, so that's good. That's good. So
let's talk about this. So if you don't mind, because a lot of people know who you are, because in Springfield and stuff, but a lot of people don't. So you want to kind of explain your story about how you got in the car business and what and we'll ask you some questions, but kind of tell us, you were in it for quite some time, right? I mean,
so like a lot of people in our business, you kind of fall into it by accident, and I was no different, right? I grew up in St. Louis, had a lot of brothers and sisters, no direction, no college, and really didn't know what I was an artist, right? That's what I wanted to be, as an artist, and my dad's like, we owe room and board, so get a job. So I wound up selling cars by accident and just really liked it. I got structure. The guy made me work. We were open 6 days a week. We were open 12 hours a day. And when I said, what's my schedule? He said, that is your schedule. And, at 19 years old, he kept you out of trouble.
yeah,
And so I really always liked that structure. And as I developed and got older, I always referred back to that when we hired younger people, a lot of them grew up just like I did. They didn't get a lot of direction. And so, that tended to be my management style. But anyway,
Right.
I've been doing it before I retired, it was 42 years. So I started at 19 years old. And it was a great career.
now you were in St. Louis, you said, and you started. Now, I know the story, but how'd you were up on a sign, painting a sign or something, were you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as I said, I wanted to be an artist, and I was on this building painting the sign for a friend of mine. It was an auto body store, so the name of it was Artistic Auto Body. And so I was up there. It was a Quonset-style hut with a gas station on the front, and this guy would pull in every morning, mid-morning, not too early, driving a new Cadillac, silk shirt, Zanzibar pants, with the white belt, back in the 70s, that was pretty cool, right?
I was 2.
Yeah, well, I'm a long-haired, skinny kid, hitchhiking,
Right, sure.
and eating mac and cheese. And so this guy'd come in, he was always real affable and, waved to me and talked to me and always had a pocket of dough, driving a new car. He said, hey, what are you going to do when you're done? I said, I don't have a job. He said, why don't you come sell cars for me? And as an artist, right, you're not really an outgoing person. So I said, I'll come talk to you. And like I said, I was hitchhiking, right? So the guy's like, I said, well, how do I get paid? He says, I'll pay you $50 a car for every car you sell. I'm like, well, how many cars would you sell? He goes, well, you ought to sell 10. I said, $500, okay. And he said, now I'll give you a car to drive. So I thought that was the closing deal. I said, what car? He pointed to a 68 Grand Prix. It was Army green. He said, that's your car. So, that hooked me, right?
Yeah.
Because now all of a sudden I had a car, I had a way to get to and from. And,
wheels are better than feet.
100%.
I was going to make $500 a month. How about that?
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I was thrilled, And,
Right.
And so that's how, that's how I got into it. Well, the guy, and I'm not going to get too deep in the story, but the guy had more of a personal interest in me. He was of the other persuasion, which, I wasn't. And so I spent about 8 months with the guy. He was a great trainer. very disciplined. And then I left, and I actually had to, I took a job at a Porsche Audi dealer, and the owner was this really awesome German guy, you know. Everything was by the book. And so I was working one day, and he comes down the steps, and he says, "Tony, do you have a brother named Tom?" I said, "I sure do, sir." And he said, "Now, I just met your brother, and he told me he was 21. And how old did you tell me you were?" I said, 21. He said, "Now you two are twins?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "How old are you really?" I said, 20. And you had to be 21 to work there.
Right.
He said, "When do you turn 21? I said, "In a couple months." He said, "Don't wreck a car." He said, "You're okay." So what did I do? I wrecked a car.
Oh, no.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a Jaguar. So then the guy's like, "Okay." He said, "Here's your punishment." He said, "I'm going to fix that car, and you got to drive it until you sell it." So I was 19, 20 years old, and I had a Jag to drive. And
Wow.
life was good.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
I want to make
It's amazing.
$1,000 a month, right?
It's amazing how it's changed throughout the years. That, you know,
Right.
because, well, accidents happen and people, you know, abuse those deals. But you don't get demos today in most
Well,
corporate stores. And
It's like everything, right? The laws, right?
yeah,
Legality is driven. You know, you can't put a guy in a car anymore. You get sued, you lose your business. But back in those days, you know, when we'd sell a car, there was literally a title you would sign,
Right.
and that was it. And then they added an odometer statement and a bill of sale. But I can remember the guy would come on our lot on Tuesdays, and he would cut the white walls and the tires. I think it was $2 a tire. And then he would say, "How many miles you want on that car?" And I'm standing there watching this. The guy said, "Well, put 22,500 miles on it." And so we'd roll, that was on Thursdays, so we'd roll the odometers back on Thursday. It was a little used car lot in downtown St. Louis. You know, I think our maximum price car was $12.95, but in those days, that was legal to do it.
Right.
Everybody did it.
So did they have financing at stores back then, or did you have to it was just cash only? They had to go to their own
Right.
bank or whatever.
Right. So you'd basically, we had some credit apps, and we would sit with the customer, and we would take their credit app, and then we would put it on those old fax machines, those round, I don't know if you remember them, like a tube. It'd take 20 minutes to fax them.
Right.
You'd send it to the bank, and, 2-3 days would go by, the bank would call you up and approve the deal. You'd meet the customer at the store, they'd come sign their paper. But it was a process, right? It was a 2-3 day process to buy a car.
So did you guys get deposits to hold them while they were
Yeah,
getting?
we'd take a deposit on the car, and and then they just set up delivery. I mean, spot deliveries back then were unheard of.
Right,
Everything
right.
was, you come in, you buy the car, and it was a whole different world than it is today.
Well, I think that's still. I mean, it's with independents because that was an independent used car lot. I'm assuming there.
right.
They don't have the luxury of the big. The big dealers have the luxury of having all those banks. We're fairly new now because we've worked for you and we've been in the business so long. We have those relationships with banks. That some of the banks like Central, great partner, right, allowed us to go ahead and work with them on site. But I think that that still happens to a lot of new independent dealers anyway.
You guys are structured very much like a new car operation, which I'm impressed with, right? Because you do your service work, your amenities such as paintless dent repair and details, and you really walk the customer through A to Z like a new car dealership,
It's kind of all we know.
Well, and it's a lot more streamlined, right? So instead of spending 3 hours, in the finance department, you just want to get your car and go, right? You guys can tailor that, and you've got all this finance. We didn't have any of those things to offer the trade. A lot of times you wouldn't even take the trades. You'd send them to go sell their car and, come back and bring you the money.
That's interesting. So
That's
then you
crazy.
went from that independent. Then where did you go from there?
So then I went to that Porsche Audi dealer, and I was 20 years old, turned 21. I stayed there for 3 years working for that gentleman, and then I got upset about something. I think a commission on a deal. I was a young guy, right? And then I left and I went into a union Ford store.
Wow.
If you can picture being a union
Yeah.
salesman.
How'd that go?
Well, you don't make any money.
Right.
We had short work hours, and boss couldn't tell you what to do, but nobody made any money. So I left that, went to work for another union store, which is unusual, but in St. Louis they had them.
Yeah.
And it was Lou
They still have
Fuse.
some, don't they?
Yeah, Lou Fuse, right? Big. Now that was that was a really nice job. It was good hours. It was union. We had good demos, but you weren't going to get rich there.
Right.
You were going to be a well-paid employee. But if you had aspirations to move on, to do other things, it was really kind of a stepping stone in your career.
Right.
Great store. Glad I, had a good mentor, John Savu. And so then I went from there and I went to work at I worked for Fuse for 5 years, and I left and went to work at a Chevy store in Illinois. A friend of mine was the general manager, and I became the finance director. And then I left that and went to work for a Chevy store in Baldwin, Missouri, which was owned by Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Okay.
And so got to know the owners of Enterprise, and Paul's brother Jack owned Enterprise, and Paul was the dealer, and I'd see him every morning, and he would go down to Mar-a-Lago to visit his brother Jack. They were neighbors with Donald Trump,
Oh, wow.
I'm just a kid from Florissant, Missouri, and I'm
Right.
kind of seeing this stuff. And so Paul called one day on a Thursday. I happened to answer the phone at work, and he said he was in Mar-a-Lago or down at by Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach. And I said, I love Florida. Next time you go. I said, hell, I'd like to go. Well, by Monday, I was working in Fort Lauderdale
Oh, wow.
for Enterprise.
That's crazy.
So they had me on a jet, interviewing for a guy in an office by Monday.
Wow.
So, I learned, be careful what you say.
Right,
So,
sure.
I wasn't planning on being in Florida in 3 days, but it was great. And then I worked for Enterprise, and then I became a general manager of a Toyota store in St. Louis. I was there for 4 years, and got recruited by a gentleman by the name of Cecil Van Tile that you guys worked for,
Right.
out of Kansas City. And Van let me come in and be his partner, and then we bought, that was Toyota and Lexus, and then we bought BMW in 96, and we bought Audi in 2009 and built it into this big store.
Right.
It's very lucky, right? It's all about being in the right place, right time, and have a little luck. I mean, what better franchises? But you create your own luck, right?
Right.
When you're
sure.
working hard, right,
Right.
and you're putting
You
in
get
the effort,
recognized.
you
Yeah.
get recognized, and then
So didn't you, if I remember right, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but down at Enterprise though, you had to, what did they task you with? You had to figure out how to sell the rental cars, correct?
So initially, I went to Florida running a used car operation in South Florida. And down there, we dealt with a lot of the folks from New York, New Jersey, snowbirds, right?
Right.
Well, Enterprise doesn't negotiate the price of the car. The price is the price. And Mr. Taylor was absolutely adamant about that. And so, we'd have these sales, right? And I wasn't used to that. And you could not discount the price of that car. Now, it'd cost you your job.
Wow.
And I had this guy come in. We're having a big sale. We had free hot dogs and free balloons and popcorn. And this guy comes in, and I got him on this car. He's like, listen. He said, I don't care about your free popcorn, your free balloons. He was used a lot more direct language, right?
Sure.
very colorful guy, huh?
Very colorful guy. So, and I told him, I said, I can't do it. I said, I'd get fired. He said, I don't, but he's bought that car. And I realized that if you sell the value of what you offer,
Yeah.
the people eventually will see it and buy it. If you sell it with passion and enthusiasm. And that's really the only thing stopping you from success, really, is your ability to convey your beliefs and what you're trying to do.
Right.
As long as you're honest, reputable, and treat people with respect.
Right.
Right? I'd never had a problem making money on a car. My customers would ask me, are you making money? I said, sure, that's why we're here. But here's what we're going to offer you.
Right.
And is it a fair value? It was a great value,
Right.
especially after watching what's going on the last 3 years, right?
Right. It's interesting how you're because when I came to work for you, that's how you taught us, right? Was that right? And that was what 30 years since you first. I mean, it's 30 years apart. Have you learned those things as you grow up in your career? Someone taught you, right, or you figured it out to learn from watching other people, and then you instill that in. But people still don't sell that way. I mean, it's amazing how you try to. They don't. A lot of. I mean, that's hard. That's not really hard. You just have to have, like you said, passion in what you're doing.
Yeah, you run into a lot, and so I'm a little later in life than both of those two. They've mentored me up through the car business. But I remember when I started, Matt told me, he said, here's the deal, you know how many models are on there? And I was like, yeah, you got 14 models of Toyotas. And he said, good. And he said, he goes, I need you to go out and close this deal. I said, yeah, I can do that. He said, but you cannot, he goes, you cannot negotiate on Prius, Camry, Tacoma. And he listed like 9 of them.
Right.
Right? He said, we don't discount those cars. And I'm like, okay, so why am I negotiating? You know, there's nothing to negotiate other than pure humility and comfort for the person across from me, you know. And I knew very little about automobiles doing that. And he handed me we called it 6 square, right, or a pencil. And I went out and talked to these older folks and closed the deal, right? And
Well, if I was given a customer advice to how to buy a car, don't buy a car from an enthusiastic salesman,
Right.
because they're going to get the money,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Find one that, you know, that's a little mopey. You got to drag him to do his job, because you're probably going to get a better deal, right? Because they're just going to, what do they have to sell? Nothing but price.
Right.
But you get someone with some enthusiasm that knows the product and explains how everything works and the features and benefits. Well, hell, by the time you get out there, you want to buy 2 of those, right?
Right.
right.
So that would be my advice.
That's been the biggest. It's kind of, you know, COVID. We were talking about this earlier today when we were having our meeting at the nice restaurant we were at. But it's about, you know, you went from people in COVID, right? It was for what, 4 years, 5 years, I think went on, where you didn't, you know, when they called you about a car, it was okay. I've only got this one, this black BMW
Know about
here.
the selling bike. Well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you a quick story. If you this is
Yeah.
this is kind of in relation to that. So I worked at Lou Fuse Pontiac, and this was from 1980 to 85. And if you're a little older, it wasn't the best years to be in the car business. You know, Jimmy Carter just ended his presidency. Ronald Reagan just took over. Interest rates on new cars were 23.24%. You know, we were getting price increases, 5-6 times a year. You get new stickers, you put them on, and they'd send you new stickers. So we're in a split showroom with Pontiac on one side, Mazda on the other. Mazda was fuel efficient. This is right after the gas embargoes. So people were all over there. People were standing in line. They had a waiting list, like 150 of those things. We sold the Pontiac Bonnevilles, and that's when they were downsized and putting the V6 engines and those long hood. They're really what you'd open the hood and there's just a little bitty engine in there, right?
Right.
But they had the velour interior and the fender skirts and the two-tone paint, and so people just walk by them and they'd stand over there and wait in line. You know, they want a silver one, but their third choice is green, and that's what they get because they just want to get one.
Right.
And we don't have any. We're staying there all Saturday with nothing to do. So I got some white shoe polish. I parked that Bonneville right across from those Mazdas, and I figured out a pound. We were selling that car for $1.99 a pound, about the price of a hamburger. And they were selling theirs for the price of filet mignon.
Right.
And I wrote that $1.99 on the windshield. And we sold every Bonneville. Those people would stand there, and while they're waiting to get to talk to somebody at Mazda, they'd come over, and they'd see how big and spacious these things are. And, the gas mileage wasn't bad on them.
Right.
Not bad for $1.99 a pound.
Right.
And so it was just a creative way of piquing their interest, but we sold every one of them. Boom.
Yeah.
And then we started ordering them like that because we knew we could sell them.
Right.
You
did a lot of that stuff. I mean, I remember when 65 was getting elevated.
Oh, yeah.
Right. For
Right.
we came up with a
Behind
deal
the
for
dirt,
that.
Yeah, behind the dirt mountain.
Yeah.
They were raising the highway, and they stacked all this dirt in front of the dealership. You couldn't see it. So this is in the days of newspaper and TV still, and so we did some commercials, and it ended with "Look for us behind the dirt mountain." Mm-hmm. So I get a call from MoDOT, and they're really upset with me. They're like, "You're giving us a black eye." I said, "You're putting me out of business." And I said, people can't see the dealership. My cars are covered in dirt.
Yeah, we had to
because
watch
these
them.
dump trucks are coming in.
Oh, it was horrible.
100 times a day, and they got those beds smacking, and
Yeah.
you'd be out there trying to show a car, you couldn't. So, but yeah, they got upset with me, but that's how we got through it, right?
Yeah.
We just advertised that, and
Then we
became
had
our thing. And
he came up. He was artistic, right? He always came up with different ideas that were great. Remember when it was a summer. I don't remember what it was. We had 7 total Toyotas, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
So we had to come up with a way of, it was turn and earn, right? So we're like, okay, what are we going to do how are we going to sell this thing? He's like, well, you're going to have to sell in your pipeline, right? Like, okay. He goes, all right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take all of our inventory and post it on the window. Remember, we had to do this every morning, and we're going to highlight what's sold and what's not sold. When customers come in, you're gonna tell them about the product, but we'll go up and say, hey, I've got this one's available. It's going to be here if you want to put your name on it. And so what happened is we did that. I don't know how many of those we sold. I can't remember that. It was a lot, but it turned. So then we started turning the inventory so fast because they're pre-sold. We just built that inventory up.
Well, I think you have to find something positive, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, working on commission all my life and relying on whatever I did that day, that week, that month, you learn to control yourself a little bit better and set objectives, short-term, long-term objectives. And you actually turn yourself into a business.
It teaches you to be a lifetime business person.
Sure. Yeah. And I work with older guys. They're the guys that taught me how to balance a checkbook. Mm-hmm. They taught me. That's how I learned most everything I did, but working from other people, And I think that so many people, they come in the morning to do their job. They're carrying their baggage from home, which is easy to do, right? Everybody's got problems. But somehow, when you get that customer in front of them, you owe it to the customer, right? Mm-hmm. They want a good experience. Mm-hmm. So why not go out there and just do your best job? And hell, you might find out that you're successful.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny you say that because that's kind of one of the drums that we beat on quite a bit. And it's not just in the car business, right? But, and you retired before COVID hit in the car business, but you've been in a car dealership since that's happened. So what's it feel like? Give me some examples of what it might feel like for you today. Because you ran it, you've done every part of it.
So we sold by far the best product on the planet, I think. It was the reputation.
I didn't know how easy it was till I left Toyota.
Remember what the slogan was, right? Dependability, reliability, quality.
Yeah. So we just had great product. So really, there was so much there to sell other than price, with Lexus, BMW, and Audi. But we still, I can remember, in fact, the first deal I think I worked with you, we stayed late for a customer. We were there till like 10:30 for this customer.
Yeah.
And everybody's gone, and they were looking at a RAV4, and we thought everything was done, and then they wanted us to throw more stuff in, and we gave everything away. It was 10:30 at night, and we got down to a set of floor mats, and they said, well, we're going to drive to Kansas City if you don't give them to us. I said, ma'am, I've given you everything I can give you. I said, listen, it's 10:30. How about I'll buy the front two, you buy the, trying to add a little levity to the thing, right?
Yeah.
And she stood up and said, give me my keys. We're going to leave. I said, over a half a set of floor mats at 10:30 at night? Seriously? You can drive to Kansas City? It costs you more than that in the gas, right? Your time.
Sure.
Nope, we're going to do it. And I said, all right, let me go get your keys. And I was so aggravated, right? I thought we stayed this late to help these folks and over this, right? So you're like, boss, we've spent a lot of time. You sure you want to do that? I said, I can't do it. I said, because my pride took over now. I said, I can't give in to them. And he said, give me the keys. I'll go do it. And we closed that deal over a half. And it was the right decision, right, over a half a set of floor mats. But so many times you miss a deal over
something simple
because your pride gets in the way, or their pride gets in the way, or
we're all competitive. Right?
From a customer standpoint, they always think there's a little bit more, and in that environment, right? We were, we were sales efficiency and stuff that's put by the manufacturer, right? In that environment, they kind of created that mess with customers, right?
Well, I can remember, but it's dated information, so it doesn't matter. But I can remember a month or a year where I lost almost $4 million in Toyota new cars because, there was an abundance of inventory. The market was super, super competitive, and you got people, we had 2 employees. You got to keep them working. You got to service the cars, so you just move on. But, that was 1 year, right? So what's the difference today? The difference today is, people are paying $10,000 over sticker.
Yeah,
they're
which we never did when we worked for you. We never,
no
matter whatever the market conditions were, MSRP, we never went over.
We'd sell cars literally, and I'd see them at some broker the next day for $10,000 more than we'd sell them for. And we knew it was frustrating, but anyway, no, we never did that. But today, people are literally almost begging to buy a car, and you can't get anyone to wait on you.
Right.
They don't know the product. They act like they're offended if you ask them a question. So the customer service has gone out the window. I think as the market tightens up, and it will, right? I think that a lot of people fall by the wayside because they don't have the skills. Things have been too easy for too long.
Well, that's what happened in COVID. Is they, you're training. Unfortunately, these businesses, they scaled back right to the bare minimum of employees, right? So all of a sudden, you've got it was the managers and maybe one salesperson, and you've got 5 customers out there trying to buy a car, and so you're skipping. You don't have time. You're trying to help the customers, but so you're skipping stuff, right? And so then it's like, which you
Taught them
shouldn't.
to cherry pick.
Right, you taught them you taught them to cherry pick, and they're like, hey, no, this is the only car I've got. And if you don't want it, this guy right here is buying it. So, but it's $10,000 over, and the guy, and so it kind of destroyed. I mean, one, the talent, the salespeople that came in here. Oh, this is easy. They didn't really, And then the other thing is, it kind of destroyed. I mean, the customers kind of. I think that's why we didn't do it. They had a bad taste in their mouth. They had to go sit there and pay that. Here I am. I want a black one. You're making me pay $10,000 over on a silver one. You know what I'm saying? So
I was in a little bit of a different situation because I was trying to save a store from closing its doors, basically, right?
Well, at that time, nobody knew what was going to happen with manufacturing. So he's talking about Infinity.
Infinity.
Oh, gotcha.
So yeah, we're selling when I called him when he got furloughed over at Toyota, we were selling 6 cars over there, and we had a manager and stuff like that. We needed to go, and we had him to come over there. But anyway, but you still see that today. So all these guys, and even the managers, all these numbers, right? All the car business is doing phenomenal. Then all these guys get promoted to jobs that they really shouldn't have been in because it was so easy to do. You see what I'm saying? And now you have all these managers, and even general managers and stuff that don't know how to lead or get out involved. And that's one thing that he always did. I can remember if you had a manager struggling, you gave us enough rope to hang ourselves. Basically, he goes, "Here, you guys are managing an department. I'm going to tell you what to do, but you're managing an department." Now, when we hung ourselves for say or whatever, you'd get in there. You'd walk over there, and it wouldn't. Some of the conversations weren't great, but you're teaching us. But you jump in there and roll your sleeves up. All right, let me show you. Okay.
Well, sometimes you didn't. You really, there was never a time. If half your staff walked out,
Right.
you couldn't the next morning say, "Okay, we're going to be closed this week and regroup."
Hey, you can't do that, right?
No, you're in business, right? And so you're retail hours, and you got to be willing to work. But I think in our business or your business, right? The rewards for people willing to work and take it serious. You're in the customer service business. If you don't like handling customers, you don't like taking care of customers, then you shouldn't do it, right?
Right.
We would go out and wash cars. We'd see the car wash backed up. We'd jump in a line in a suit and help wash cars.
Yep.
But we also had a good repeat business, as you guys are starting to develop with your own business.
Yeah, I can remember. Remember, we had a code for the service drive. You remember that?
Yeah, you guys had some codes for other things.
Like hot coffee?
Yeah, what was the coffee one?
That was hot coffee.
That was our friend John Cook.
That was
I
John
think.
Cook. John Cook started. John Cook. Well, he came from
Well,
California
I
too,
used
right?
to hear you guys page hot coffee, and I'm like, why? So,
It'd be hot coffee in the used car building.
That's
So-
right.
Anyway, we're not
And you
gonna.
saw every male running from every corner.
when you work that much, 10, 12-hour days, 6 days a week with guys,
You gotta make
right?
light sometimes.
Well, it becomes your family,
Yeah.
right? And you better have some fun while you're doing it.
Yeah.
Well, we were all very competitive. I think that's one thing that drove us. I can remember speaking to John. He'd be over there and certified. He wanted to beat me all the time, and I'd always get on there and start
He did
paging.
beat you all the time.
No,
I'm just teasing.
we'd get up and I'd start.
What's John Lee?
John Cook.
John Cook.
Oh,
He was a
okay.
used car manager, but he came from Enterprise too, right? From
Yeah.
California,
Yeah,
ran,
Tom McDonald. He worked for Tom
Yeah.
down in Los Angeles.
and they ran
Yeah,
some.
that was before me, right?
Yeah. So anyway, every time he'd put up a contest new against used, and I just like to get in his head. So I'd start paging every time we're selling a car. I knew we were like beating them or getting close. I'd just page. That's another one for the Toyota new car department. And he gets so mad. He called me. That's another delivery. That's 5 today.
Old intercoms. Those are great.
Yeah, we had some fun for sure.
So then, okay, so let's go back. So you worked the longest for Mr. Van Tile, right? That's the longest.
25 years.
So tell us about that and what you learned from him, because he's an icon. He was
So, I was, talk about mentors, right? I had the Bill Suntrip, right? Owned the big auto group in St. Louis, the Fuse organization, Lou Fuse Jr. And then, Enterprise, right? Jack Taylor was worth, I don't know, he's one of the richest families in the world, really.
Right.
So I've had great mentors, but Van was the best. So it was like your grandpa, kind of, because he looked that way, and I'll never forget my first meeting with the guy. And the first meeting I had as a general manager, he came down to the Toyota store, and we sat in my office, and he was sitting across with his big blue eyes and looking at me. He carried a briefcase that was, probably 10 inches thick, and he would, on the way down to the dealership, he'd study every aspect of the store, because he had multiple stores. So so when he came in to meet with me, he knew specifically what he wanted to address, what questions he had, and so on. So I'm sitting there, and the store's not doing what it should be, and I'm giving him every excuse in the world, and he just looking at me with those blue eyes, nodding his head, and he looks at his watch, and he had a big gold Rolex, and said, "All right, can you run me across the town or across the street?" And I said, "Yes, sir." So we get up and we walk out to the door, and he turns around, sticks his hand out, and shakes my hand. He goes, "Is there anything else I could do for you?" I said, "No, sir, unless you could figure out how to get more traffic coming into this place." He looked at me, he said, "Isn't that what I hired you for?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Is there anything else?" I said, "No, sir." And in 25 years, I never asked that gentleman for anything. I mean, what a valuable lesson, right?
Right.
I mean, can you have a better lesson, right?
Right.
Isn't that what I hired you for? And, I took that to heart. So he made us partners. I was his partner. I owned a percentage of the dealership. He was the majority. And he was my boss. But, I think you said earlier, right? He'd give you enough rope to hang yourself. He wanted you to be, he didn't want you to be afraid to do things, but certainly, Van's whole motto was people, people, people. He said, "We're not in the car business, we're in the people business." And what better way to say it?
Yeah, it's 100% right.
I can remember.
It's that's that KC blood going through him, that Kansas City, Missouri blood going through him that makes him that way.
Yeah, great guy. Honest to God, he was if he shook your hand, it was a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We bought dealerships that way, and handshake, and he was the most incredible person. Didn't go to college, served World War II, came out on a used car lot like you. It was right at the end of World War II. New cars weren't selling, so he started buying new Chevys from the Chevy guy that couldn't sell his inventory and putting them on his used car lot and doing so well. Chevrolet came to him and said, "How would you like to be a Chevrolet dealer?" And that's how he got his first store in 1955.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Sold out to Warren Buffett, with 84 stores, and the most respected man in the automobile business by far.
Yeah. Now his son Larry is
just like his
right,
dad.
and he's back into it now, right?
Well, yes, he's got 8, 10 stores, Ferrari, more Highline stores, but really they Larry's really diversified.
Kind of California. I think he's kept
Texas
some of them
too,
California. He's got a few in California,
California, Texas, Arizona.
Yeah.
So
I think maybe in Georgia or Florida now,
you started there in 91?
93.
93. So what made that what made that organization so different than everybody else's? Because there's a ton people don't. I mean, there's a lot of dealers, right? But what you guys built, all of you, became such an everybody was chasing, right? I mean, it's like that was the group everybody kind of aspired to look at.
Yeah, it was. It was just such a well-run. We had quarterly meetings, right? We'd spend eight hours going through everything, and you're with some of the best car dealers in the industry, and it was intimidating.
Right.
But you learn from each other. We'd have breakout sessions. Van would do contests with groups of dealers, competing against each other, and then we would pheasant hunt together. So we would do things together. The wives knew each other, the partners knew each other, and Van and Larry were the type of people that, if you lost a family member, they're going to be there.
Right.
I can remember them. One of the partners lost her son, and they flew the body home on their jet. And
Wow.
one of the guys was at the World Trade Center, the building 2 when one went down and was stuck up there. And Van did a Mercy flight into New York, took up some transplant parts so they could get Dan and bring him back home. So,
Wow.
he was just, you were part of their family, and you felt like, man, you were his partner, and he treated you like a partner.
Right.
It was just what an incredible opportunity. Again, it's luck, right? I was lucky that he was looking for someone. I happened to be the guy, but they recognized me because I was doing a good job in St. Louis. And
That was an Ackerman, is that right? Jerry Ackerman?
Yes, and
right.
somebody from Toyota,
Recommended.
yeah, gave him my name. And
Yeah, I can remember when we were winning the truck, number one truck dealer in the 6 states, and he would come down.
Yeah.
I mean, he would come down
and have dinner.
and it was just, and we were all, you got, of course, we all looked up to Tony, but Tony's mentor is Mr. Van Tuyl, and he's coming down, and you're sitting there going, okay, we were all dressed to the nines, right? Made sure the showroom was clean, make sure and then we're going out to this dinner, and I'll never forget this. I'm sitting next to, was Paul Holdridge and Dave
It was
Pena.
down Bijan's, wasn't it?
I don't remember which one it was, but I remember sitting down and Mr. Van Tuyl was talking to you about it, his jet, right? And I'm just kind of, it's a whole different level, right? And so I'm listening to the conversation, and Dave Pena's over here trying to sell me 400 Echoes at the time, and I'm like,
No air conditioning.
right? I'm over here going, just so you know, it's not my decision, Dave. You understand that, right? But I wanted to listen to this conversation, and I think he paid. I don't know the exact number, so bear with me. But I think he said, "Well, Tony, I could only talk him down $1 million. It's like $22 million jet." And I go, "He could only." And I sat there and went, "He could only talk him down $1 million."
The guy was such a good business person. Really, when he would talk, you would
Listen,
really look
yeah.
at him in awe. Just because he was so down to earth. He was from Kansas. He talked just like any Kansas guy, and just very.
Well, he lived his life through people too, right?
People.
If you live your life through people, then it tends to.
Well, he would walk around
He was
and say hi to the employees. With Tony, they would walk around. You didn't see that, right? You definitely didn't see it later on in a different organization. But it just that's what he would do and say how you're doing and what's going on, and you carry a conversation with them just like anybody else.
I don't believe I ever physically got to meet him, but I met his son, Larry.
So when Miss Alice passed away, Miss Alice, for those who was my office manager, and great person, and Mr. Van Tuyl really liked her because Alice was all business, right? He'd come
100%.
in and she'd always have a cup of coffee waiting for him with a napkin sitting on top, just like he liked it on my desk. And so he'd always come in and give her a big hug, and that just wasn't like Van. He'd say hi and stuff, but he took a liking. So when Alice was passing away, he on Thanksgiving flew down in his jet from Kansas City, I picked him up, and we went over there. He sat with her for 45 minutes,
Wow.
holding her hand. And I thought,
Wow.
what a measure of a guy, right?
That's
Yeah, it's
wow.
still-
I've never heard
jokes.
that. I've never heard
Yeah,
that
it's
story.
I went to the other room, and I wanted to give them their own time, and I thought, what an incredible guy. On Thanksgiving that he would
Yeah,
come
that's-
down. Actually, it was the day after Thanksgiving, and it was right before she had passed away. So I thought that was
amazing.
really, yeah.
Amazing.
Well, they created a. I loved working for. Well, we're a product of you, which is a product of that. It was, of course, there's times when some of those guys would come in there and
He
try
may
to tell
not
you what
want you
to
to
do.
make that announcement. Just-
No, but no, that organization. It was just even as a sales manager though, the way that it was like, hey, he was trying to teach us to have a career and say, hey, if you do these things and your numbers tell the tale. Remember, you've always told us that, hey, your numbers tell the tale. Either they're good or bad. They tell you. You go by the numbers. Bottom line,
Well, you can BS anything you
Sure.
want, but at the end of the month,
the numbers tell the tale.
where you stand, right?
100%.
So-
But it was a lot of structure. We had a lot of structure and a lot of I remember there's so many memories because I worked for you for so long. I remember when we were in Save a Deal and Payne Stewart passed away. Remember that? We were sitting in there. I remember we would have manager trainings, and we'd have Dave Anderson videos, and we're walking through, and you kind of when you train with your management staff like that, and he's in there, and you're role playing stuff, you didn't want to role play, you're going to get put on the spot, but you had to do it because you had to get better. But you kind of started respecting everybody because everybody's in there going to battle together. That's kind of what it was. You're in there studying, learning.
Nobody
answering.
wants to do it.
No, but
right?
you got to. I mean, you got to do it, and it is what it is.
So I'll give you one funny story. So Matt's 22. He comes to work, tall, skinny kid, and I think he'd been there a couple of days. And I'm leaving. It's Saturday evening. I'm driving out of the lot.
Oh,
Everybody's gone except for me and him. And he's out checking cars on the front row. And I pull over and say goodnight to him, welcome aboard. He says, "Hey," he says, "I'm going for your job." And I looked at him, I said, "Well, good for you." And so, that's what he stayed focused on that through his entire career. I'll tell you one more funny story, and I'll shut up.
He's got a lot of them.
He was new. He's, he goes up and waits on. He worked in new cars, but we were kind of covered up in used cars, so we sent him up there to wait on a customer, and he winds up with these 3 Russian guys. Mm-hmm. This is not long after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and they're buying and exporting cars to Europe, And so I go up there to see what's going on. The manager is sitting on his butt, and he's got a couple new salesmen. He's telling them to go out and work the customer. Well, they don't even know what that means, right? And I said, "Why don't you get off your butt and go out and help the guys, okay?" So about that time, Matt comes walking up, and he's got this worksheet, and he says, "Okay," because the manager told me, he says, "Well, just go get an offer." Well, they made an offer like 10 grand less than the car was, and Matt comes up, and I'm mad at the manager because of this is how he's managing, right? And so Matt comes up, and he's telling the manager, and I grabbed that piece of paper, and I said, "Here," I said, "You want to know what to tell that guy?" I wad that thing up in a ball. I said, "You go back there and you stand in front of that guy and throw that and say, 'That's a ridiculous offer. Why don't you make me a real offer?'" Something like that, right? So it was totally inappropriate. So he just goes out there to do it. Well,
I was told what to do, and I went and did it.
I go right back to the manager, and I'm on that manager, and out of the corner of my eye, I see Matt. He doesn't sit down. He stands up across from these guys, and boom, and they stand up like a rocket, and I'm like, "God damn it." So I ran out there. I said, "That's my fault." And wound up, these 3 guys were former Russian KGB guys. They had a briefcase full of cash, and they came in to buy this Land Cruiser that they're going to export back to Russia. We were unfamiliar with all this stuff at the time. This is all brand new. But anyway, we sell the guy the car.
Yeah.
And they come back to buy more. Well, then the FBI shows up, and they're like, "Okay, we need everything on this transaction."
They come to the show, and I'm like, "Can we see Matt Maxwell?" I'm like, "It's the FBI." And I'm like, 111. Tony, I've got the FBI out here. Can you come help me? You got what?
That's crazy.
So, but you just kind of, a lot of times I remember people come up and they're afraid. They're petrified to go out and talk to the customer. He's like, "Just go tell them this." And they would, but Matt was that guy. Who would think he'd actually go do it, right? I'm so used to him telling me all the reasons they can't do anything. He just marches right up there and boom. So anyway, that was one of our funnier stories.
Yeah, I remember there was one when we hired. Remember when I interviewed you? You remember Scott Horberg, right? And
sure.
He went to go to
Scotty,
Japan or something, I think, and he brought back that samurai sword.
right?
Well, we have the samurai sword in my office, and he kind of he's. I'm doing interviews right across outside the tower. Remember the tower, the one that you designed? And I think, what did you say about that when you come in there? He's like, I'm interviewing him. He just keeps looking at this sword. Like, why does this guy have this sword in here?
Yeah, I did. I asked him too. Point blank. I was point blank. I was like, "What? Why do you have it? Why do you have a sword in your office?"
Yeah, I'm just like, what are you doing?
Sitting here, he's sitting, big guy, right? Obviously, and he's sitting across from me, and I'm just like, there's a sword right up here. I'm just the whole time he's talking and asking questions. I'm like, looking at that thing like, what is it? Does it chop heads off? You hear all kinds of stuff too, especially if you've never been in a car business or sales in general, right? You get to hear all the negative stuff, but I think it's a pretty cool career.
Yeah.
I've sure trained enough people around town. I mean, some of them I think, you're always so proud when you find out some guy worked for you, started out, is now doing great. Like, you guys got your own business, right? I mean, you got to think, well, I hope I played some positive part in that.
Sure.
I know a lot of guys didn't really like my management style. Hell, there were days I went home and I kind of hated myself for the way I was that day, you know. So I really didn't blame them. If there's anyone out there listening, I apologize if
Oh, they're listening.
yeah,
Trust
well,
me.
So,
Oh,
but anyway, and I'd tell them, I'd say, guys, my job is not to be your buddy. So
Yeah.
don't misconstrue anything I'm telling you. My job is to train and develop you. You might like it, you might not. I hope you do. I mean, if a guy performed, they were my friend. You know, we'd go to the lake house, we'd go fishing, we'd do this. But come Monday, you know, you had a job to do, and I had a job to
Well,
do.
the best trainings I ever had with you, I mean, the live ones were great, but I'd always pick his brain after work. If you remember that, I always went in there,
sure.
I'd sit down, and, you know, we'd go get a bottle of water, and we're drinking some water. Huh?
We'd get what?
A bottle of water. We're having a cocktail. But
I was going to say, you said picking brain. I thought all I heard was pour his drink.
Yeah. You know, he stopped having me pour his drink after a certain period of time because he's like, hey.
Well, there's a little difference in size, right?
Yeah.
And I'd have a couple of his drinks, and I could hardly stand up.
Yeah,
I'm like,
so-
okay, something's going wrong. So you can't make me.
This is more than taking the edge off, right?
But those are the best, some of the best.
Tell them about your float trip when you decided to. So Matt, we'd work the guy because he just gets so pumped up, right? Matt, you can do anything, man. You can do this, right? And you'd see him puff up, get pride. Well, we all go on a float trip, and we're standing around the bonfire, and
This is the-
we got the Toyota 4Runner backed up, the hatch open. We're listening to Invaluable Defeata, right? There's like
And we
8 guys.
here, and we. By the way, it's all like all the management staff and some couple cells, but we're F&I guys. When we just rock, we just had a heck. I mean, we're
Saturday
rocking
night,
and roll, right?
We just drove 200.
Yeah.
We got a cabin rented. We're out there. We're gonna float the next day, and
we're cooking dinner. I mean, it's a come on. I mean, we're having fun.
so we got Indigada Davida playing,
Yeah.
roaring fire. The river's right there. You can hear it. And
Nice
Matt's
bonfire.
leaning against this tree or something. And there's a big rock. I mean, it's big. It's as big as this table. And it's right next to this fire. And we're sitting around. It's 10:30. Everybody's kind of quieting down, you know. And Matt all of a sudden sets his drink down, and he wraps his arms around that thing. He's going to pick it up. He tattooed both arms.
Rock. The only thing I said was rock, hot.
He couldn't talk.
I couldn't talk.
So
I'm like,
we were laughing so hard.
I mean, yeah.
Tommy Gray was sitting like where you are with the river right behind him, tumbles down the hill.
Yeah, he's laughing so hard, and he
We thought
falls
we
backwards
lost
in the
him.
chair. I mean, it was.
What were you thinking, Matt? He said, well, I was going to pick that.
I was picking
move
that thing
rock.
up, man.
It was a big boulder. But we had a lot of fun. We worked hard. We played. That's what my bosses say, work hard and play hard.
Well, I remember the very first float trip I went on with you. It was me, you, Jeff Sage, and Mike Lee, and we were all salespeople on the Toyota floor. Okay, and there were only 7 of us at that time. It was Steve Morton, Rex Lyons.
We had
It was Parker, right? Sean Parker, and it was Nigel on the floor. Did you already move him to finance?
John Cook, maybe?
No, I don't know. But it was, I mean, extremely talented. I mean, if you really look at the guys that are on that floor right now, they're all. I mean,
I hope none of these guys mind us mentioning their names.
No,
or
they
telling
don't.
some
We haven't
stories
had
about
we haven't had any.
no,
phone
we're
calls
all.
yet.
No, we don't. We're not. You know, they know where we work. So anyway, so and we're sitting there. So the 4 of us go down there, and we're sitting in the water and the deal. And lo and behold, guess what we started doing? We started having sales training. You know, that's what we did. And he'd sit down there and talk. He goes, guys, here, you guys, you guys are young. You have your career in front of you. I mean, you have all this time that you can do all this stuff. But here's what you need to do. And that's where you learned a lot of stuff. But you had to implement. That's the thing. You had to go back and you had to listen, and you had to train. You had to develop yourself, and you had to implement it. And I remember, I remember this. This is how I got into management. I don't know if he remembers this story, but everybody else got promoted. I'm sitting there going, well, there's not. I mean, these guys just got promoted or whatever, and I'm over here in Toyota. And then I don't know who the manager was at the time. Maybe it was Joe Ivory, I think it was, over in used cars, and he quits or something. I don't know what happens there, but Scott Colmar, right, goes over there and works. And so I'm in Toyota, and I'm just like, I'm just going to start helping, right? So I just started helping or whatever like that, and doing TOs and trying to figure out how to do the save a deal and stuff. I think I did that for like three months, but I didn't know how to train people. But what he did is Tony pulls me in his office. He goes, okay, listen, I've hired this when you hired Cameron Sorowar, I think. He goes, I'm hiring the guy. I love what you did. I really respect what you did, but you're not ready yet. And I respected that. But he goes, but I'll let you go where you want to go. What do you want to do? I said, I want to go into finance. I want to learn finance. He goes, that's a good choice. You need to donate money.
Everybody wants to go to finance.
Well, yeah, and I spent, then I got into finance.
which is completely crazy to me.
But if you hear what he said, right? He
Yeah.
said he just got busy, which is exactly what I did, right?
It's kind of what happened to me too.
Right. Then when I was standing around those cars, I got that. Well, my boss recognized that. He saw that. He said, "Well, here's a guy taking initiative." So
Right.
I think any employee that wants to develop their career, it's really up to them, right?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, and people, a lot of times when we'd hire people, they'd be a year and a half, and they'd quit. Well, I'm like, there's so much opportunity here. You had so many different places to go, but you got to be able to see them, right? So if somebody comes to work here, do they see, where they can go from here? Where it's going to take them 10 years down the road?
Right.
Well, but here, how I flipped,
It's amazing too that you'll hire people in, and you're like, oh, this gonna be a rocket, right? And then you hire somebody else in, and you're like,
Yeah.
this kid ain't gonna make it.
Okay, I got to tell you about this guy. So I hired this guy from Brown University, right? Had 2 master's degree. So I'm, at this time I'm approaching 60 years old. I'm thinking I got to somehow connect with these younger people, right? Because we want to, keep the dealership moving forward, right? And so I hired this guy, and I hire him to really teach us how to relate to this younger generation, because everybody was struggling with the hours, and they don't like being told what to do. It's like, okay, how do you manage this new generation? So I don't know if you were working.
I don't know.
So
No,
anyway,
he wasn't, I was.
were you there?
Yeah.
Sharp-looking kid, and looked like John F. Kennedy, right? The curly
Yeah.
hair, had all the degrees, and so I put him up in the BMW department, and the HR, we had an office up there, and I gave him that office. I said, that's your office, right? So a couple days go by, and someone pops their head in and said, hey, say, that guy you just hired? I said, yeah. They said, he's asleep under his desk. And all I could think of is that Seinfeld episode with George, right?
Right.
Sleeping under the
Right.
desk. So I walk up there, and sure enough, the guy, he's like, well, I'm just taking a break. I said, yeah, but you can't sleep under your desk. He says, why not? So anyway, he didn't make it very long. We decided maybe we don't want to go there, but I thought, he's a guy with 2 master's degree from Brown University, right? And I couldn't find a good job.
Here, I'm gonna tell you, it goes back to buy-in, right? So I remember there was I was leaving. I was a salesman. This is before I'll just back up on the story. I was leaving, right? And Scott had called. I remember I went down to Jimmy Mitchell in Aurora. We had a salesman. I think his name was Mike. That was the guy that was supposed to mentor me. He had quit, and he's calling me. You need to come down here. And I wasn't doing well selling cars.
The guy who was going to mentor you is now recruiting you.
Yeah. So I go down there and I sit down and I'm looking. They had the old. I mean, this thing is the old phones that were rotary. I mean, we're putting computers on the desk, right? And I'm sitting there going, and he's like, oh yeah, this is a great place to work. You can just you just sit back. You don't have to do anything, and you can just sell cars, whatever you want to do. And I remember leaving that. And Scott, I didn't show up for work. So Scott calls me and I answer the phone. He goes, what are you doing? He goes, I don't know if I'm going to work there or not. And he goes, you need to come down here and talk to me. And this time I had left. You were mad. You're like, cut bait. Get rid of the guy, right? And Scott's like, hey, I don't know what he said to you, but no, let me talk to him. This guy's got, whatever. And I think that, remember, this is right after I had some bad luck where a car came down and it wasn't, I had a delivery and it was painted in the body shop. I had some bad luck, right? So anyway, he sat down, and I remember sitting, and you guys go, Matt, you actually know the process is better than everybody, but you're not having any fun. If you just have fun and do it, you're probably one of the better sales people. I wasn't making it me, right? I was just I was going through just high, there's no passion. So so you go, okay, here's the deal. I had 1 car out, and we had 13 or 14 selling days left. You go, okay, you got to hit 10 cars to keep your job. He goes, can you do it? I said, yes, sir, I can. I'll do it. I want my job. I'll do it. Well, I sold 13, I think, or whatever.
I remember this.
Yeah, I sold 13 or something like that. And then that was when I bought in. That was the moment I went through. And I think that's what a lot of people are struggling with.
I can do it.
Yeah.
I can do it at Dawn's. So I told you at Lou Fuse, right? In 1980, we had the Pontiac Phoenix. Do you remember that car?
Yeah.
The X-Body?
Yes.
You remember how
Yeah.
ugly they were?
100%.
Now, again, we got Mazda the Mazda 626, the RX-7, sporty. People wanted that stuff, right? That Phoenix was so ugly, the Chevy Citation, and it's like, how did they come up with this car? But anyway, so people would, on their way down to Mazda, they would want to comparison shop. And so it's like, what in the world do you sell them on this car? It is so ugly. I mean, what do you sell them? Well, here's what you sell them. One, it's front-wheel drive, right? And not many cars were front-wheel drive at the time. And it's easier to pull than to push, and it's better in the snow, right?
Right.
This car has a computer. And they're like, nobody kind of knew what computers were. I said, yes, sir. Or yes, ma'am. It's got a computer right here. This computer has more computing power than what the Apollo moon mission had.
Yeah, so right.
They're like, really? In this car? I said, yes. It's going to monitor your braking, this. It's got rack and pinion power steering. It's got these translucent containers where you just open your hood and you can visually check your fluids to make sure everything's good.
Right.
And so most cars had all that stuff, but nobody told anyone
Right.
they had it. They got these little hooks on the hood. So if you're in a front end accident, it's going to hook that hood instead of coming back to you and catch it for safety and push the engine. People like that. They want to know what they're getting for their money, but so few salespeople will take the time to build value in what they're selling.
Right. Right. And
That was my experience.
I think they're still struggling doing it today. I mean, it's like this, and we'll go and switch gears a little bit on used cars because that's kind of you've always loved the passion of selling used cars, right?
Right.
So,
right.
so
They're
why?
one of a kind, right? Like fingerprints.
Right. So if you got a new salesman, there are probably some guys listening to this around town. What would you recommend them to learn in the used? What's important in the used car department? It's selling that versus selling like news.
I think so many people. I noticed when we'd trade for a car, it'd go back to the bullpen until we'd stock it in, and then it would go over to service, and we get the service done, and then it'd go to detail, blah blah blah. The car would hit the lot. It's a fresh car, right? Nobody's seen it before, so everybody gravitates to it, right?
Right.
But you'd go out there and you'd listen to the sales pitch. It's got power windows. It's got power locks. It's got tilt. It's got cruise. Everything has that today. What doesn't have that?
Right.
So what are you telling them?
Right.
But what was more important is you said, this car here is a 2-owner. Local person had it. It was serviced here. This has been done. We traded for the car. We've done this. It's got a clean Carfax. Never been involved in a wreck.
Right.
I think when you're selling used cars, that's what people want to know. What am I buying? Am I buying? They're looking at the car.
Right.
They're okay with the looks of it cosmetically. Otherwise, they wouldn't be looking at it.
Right.
But now, if you just build the value, we call it provenance. collecting old guitars. There's a provenance, a story.
Right.
Well, there's a story to every one of these used cars.
Right.
And the story is what sells the car. So you can either give everything away because you built no value, or you can take 15 minutes when you guys get a new car and just go drive the car, look at the car, look in the glove compartment, look under, just get to know the car. So
Right.
when you get a customer, you might only have one chance on that car. You might as well be ready for it.
Yeah, and then also I remember you had us doing. I remember you coming over when I went over to our the used car department across the street where I think B&W is now, and
The used car walk-arounds.
right, and you would have us. You come out there with that. I mean, you come over there, right? I'm the manager. I'm running the department, and you would sit there and ask us. We'd go outside every, I wouldn't say every morning, but we'd go outside, and you'd have us tell you the story. I want you to tell me the story, and we had to know the miles, where it came from, the service history on it.
Well, your customer deserves to know that stuff, right? But more importantly than that, every day that car sits on a lot, it gets older, right? It's getting dirty. Somebody can ding it, and the excitement goes away to it.
Right.
So why not, when that thing hits the lot, if this is directed to people in the business, when it hits the lot, be ready as a salesperson to present that car to a customer, right?
Right.
And go drive it. Don't wait until you get a customer on and find out there's no gas in it, the battery's dead.
It's dirty.
The last person that drove it left some trash in it.
Sure.
Now you lose your opportunity. You got a tire that's got low air pressure because the seasons are changing.
The clock.
No gas.
No gas, no keys.
Yeah, the clocks. We changed the clocks.
Right. As seasons change, adjust the radio so it's not blaring when you open the door. And I always drove first. Because if there was going to be an issue with that car, I wanted to be the one in control, not my customer. Right. I don't want to, my customer is nervous. They don't know where to go. It's a new car they've never driven, and I'm now just going to jump in it with, well, what kind of demo drive is that? You know?
right.
But if they ride with me and I can tell them some of the provenance, and I can get everything adjusted for them, you know, and then I find a safe place and then offer to let them drive it back, it's a much easier test drive for the customer and for you.
And I think a lot of it's lost too in this, that people don't understand. Now it's internet and phone, right? It was, you have to know those stories so you can explain that to on the phone and when you're talking to somebody.
Trying to get them to drive in from.
Yeah, I mean, they don't. It's like the art of the sale is just,
Well, right here, it's a perfect example.
Well, yeah, this car this is.
So this is behind us is a '97 BMW 840 Ci. It was my neighbor's father-in-law's car. It's been sitting in a garage for 7 years. So the gentleman unfortunately passes away. Good long life. His son-in-law now has to dispose of this car. Knowing that I was a car dealer, he said, "You know anyone that'd want that?" So I went over and looked at it. Well, this is the car, right? And it'd been sitting in a garage for 7 years. It was dirty and blah, blah, blah. So we've cleaned it, done all the service work to it. Look at this car, but ask me anything about that car, I can tell you about it.
100%.
So, and that's what the value is. This isn't just a 30-year-old car. This is a 30-year-old car. It's had one owner for 26 years. All the service is done, and we replaced the.
Did you sell that to them new? Did they buy it from you?
No, they actually.
No, because it was it's a 90.
This car came
97,
from.
right?
He bought it actually right before we bought BMW. He bought this from Voss Auto House. I hate to give him a plug, but that's where it came from. And then he had it for the 26 years. And so then I sold him a Lexus LS 400 that he started driving because it's easier to get in and out. And so I would see him every day in one of the two cars. He'd come over to walk the dogs. And so, yeah, it's really it's been a fun. I love cars. That's why I was in the car business.
That's been kind of a cool little
it's kind of fun
transition to see it. The car just had wear and tear on it, right? It needed some shining up to do.
Well, I haven't been able to talk about the car business this much in years. I kind of enjoyed it. So I don't want to take. I appreciate you guys having me on here. Thank you.
We're fine. But what's fun for us is, I think, because you're one of our mentors. You're our mentors, and was watching you though, that passion when with this car. I've always prided myself to try and learn this stuff. I mean, and he does. I'm telling you, if you ever talk about or listen to Tony's story or something he's talking about, he reads a lot, right? You study whatever he's not a. I mean, the fine details is what you always explain about something, and this is just like selling a car. You take the time and do that. I mean, you're looking at the lines, the body lines. We're looking at the lights. Okay, hey, this might be off a little bit. What can we do to fix this to make this a little bit better? And then when you explain that to a customer buying it, they feel that deal, and they're like, hey, and then you're saying, you're asking $24,000 for this thing. They're going to pay. They see the value in it because you built that value.
Well,
right?
Initially, this car, because of the way it looked, it wasn't valued anything at that. But as I've done my research, and as this car, we've gotten the dust off and the dirt, it's turned out to be someone's going to get really lucky on that.
100%, and have a great story to go along with it too.
If they're smart, they just buy it and keep it in the.
That's what I should be doing. But I only have so many garage spaces, and that's the problem. I need more garage.
So, Tony,
and you have a vehicle addiction problem too. So
who's this handsome young guy you got over here? Is this the guy producing all this stuff?
Yes, that is.
Yeah, he's gonna make the magic happen.
I think we're putting him to sleep over there.
No, he's listening. So. But tell me this, because I don't think I've ever asked you this. So the 22 years you spent with Van. 25. Tell us about. One of the most impressive things you learned, and then something that either good or bad, whatever, but it's something that really sticks with you about the company or you or him or something that you can say, okay, hey, this is just something that stands out.
So a lot of things, right? People.
Right.
I mean, Tony, we're not in the car business; we're in the people business, and I think that applies to whatever you do. If people will remember that's what you're doing. When they walk on your lot, you're in the people business. You're there to serve and satisfy them, right?
Now, does that go with employees too? When he's talking to people, I mean, he's talking about everybody, so everybody understands. Just not customers. You're everybody, right?
Right. So it's just you're in the people business, right? With everybody, and then, he was really good with these sayings, these anecdotes, and. One I really liked was, don't wait for the ship to come in, swim out to it. You know, why stand there and wait for something? Go out there and make it happen, you know?
Sure.
So in those days, they would do things they'd call would you takes. So the salespeople literally would go out there and take their business card and write on it, would you take this for your car? Call me. And they'd go to a shopping mall and put these on you know, in Japan, they'd go door to door, knock on sell cars door to door. But that was, you know, his thing. Make it happen. Don't stand there waiting for it, you know. I mean, if a customer pulls up on the line, go out to them. Don't wait for them to come into you, you know. Gosh, he had so many of them.
It is to be, it's up to me.
Oh, yeah. If it is to be, it's up to me. I mean,
Yeah, that's
how did I forget that
it
one, right?
doesn't get any clearer.
If
than
it
that.
is, well, to go back to, you know, hey, can you get more traffic? Isn't that what I hired you for?
Yeah.
So if it is to be, it's up to me. He was such a big thinker. You know,
Yeah.
when we were building the body shop, I first turned in some plans, and this is the kind of guy, you know, I'd been in the car business for years, but never really spent time in body shops. So we bought this property. I got BMW. He's like, what are you going to do with the rest of it? I said, well, I'll add used cars. He says, what else? Body shop? He said, there you go. So I draw it all out, and I submit it to him. He goes, that's kind of small, don't you think? Well, it was going to be one of the bigger body shops in town. He says,
Right.
well, you got all that land. Why are you building it so small? So he says, I'll tell you what. So he loaned me his jet. He had a Hawker 700. He had his pilot fly to Springfield. I grabbed my management staff at the time. We jumped on that jet, went to Dallas, spent the day, touring body shops. Came back, rebuilt it to 30,000 square foot. And he's like, that's a little better, right? But he was a big thinker. And, you know, if I look back today, I built that body shop too small. But he was that way with everything, you know.
Yeah.
It was just a big, because he thought, you know, whatever you want to achieve, whatever you conceive, you will achieve, right? And that was kind of Van. Whatever you conceive in your mind, you will achieve. So if you think you're only going to do this, right, that's probably what you'll do. But if you know, I mean, he had some huge stores. These were little stores, right?
Right.
I mean, big, selling 1,000 cars a month. And
Oh yeah.
you know, and
Crazy.
very seldom did Van ever say, good job. You know, we'd have our best month ever. And he said, now look and see what you can do. What are you going to do next month?
Yeah.
So, you know, it was
I remember hearing pleased but not satisfied.
but Van was that guy that just, you know, I mean, you loved him, right?
Right.
We'd go to Las Vegas for a partners meeting, and, you know, it's Saturday night, we'd go down to the tables, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but, you know, Van wasn't a big guy. He was a small guy. We'd all be suit and ties, you know, always very respectful.
Right.
You know, and our wives would be there, and so Van would go over to the crap table, and he, you know, the guy just was a winner, right? So he'd have his $10,000 of chips sitting on the table, start rolling, and, you know, everybody's around that table. Well, we're standing around there one night, it's midnight, and all the partners and Van's just clean. He's got 50, 60 grand on the table, and see guys came up. I think they were going to try and get some of that, you know. And it was interesting to watch Van's partners just surround him
Right.
and tell these guys, don't even think about it, you know. But that's the kind of love you had for the guy. That,
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
he took care of you, and we were going to take care of him.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
That's
cool.
We'd go grocery shopping for our pheasant hunting trip. You know, he'd take us all in the store. He'd have his list. He'd be like little mother ducks, right? He'd be walking, we're all behind. And then you'd be throwing stuff, bunch of guys, we're throwing chips and all the
Right.
stuff in the carts. He'd come by and look at the carts. And, you know, you might grab Wesson oil. Well, that's not the oil he used. He'd pick it up and look at it and said, Wesson, He wouldn't tell you no. But as soon as he walked away, you'd put that Wesson and go find the one he wanted. He'd never say no. But you just, you know, you wanted to please the guy.
Yeah, that's neat. I mean, that's cool. I can remember you came back from a meeting, I think, with him. I think this is a story. And we were having a manners meeting, and you brought back that CD from Earl Nightingale, and we played it. You played it for all of us, you know, and I still
Yes.
have that.
Yep.
And it's The Strangest Secret, right? And we're sitting in there, and you had said it. And I thought, I go, okay, here's a billionaire, right? You know, giving a millionaire this deal, and these two guys are sharing it with all of us, and we're sitting down here. That's when my thinking was, you better listen. I mean, they're giving it to you for a reason, right? And so I listen to that thing probably once or twice a year still. I still have it.
Well,
But
he
it's-
was never about the money,
Right.
Van was never, he lived in the same house like Warren Buffett,
Yeah.
I don't think, the partners were the ones, like we were all like, what's our exit strategy here? We're all getting a little bit older, and I think that's quite frankly the only reason they moved that deal as they did, because the partners. But I think after it was done, it's not about the money. We all missed our relationship with him,
Right,
and,
sure.
and we all loved what we did. I stayed for another 3 years because I loved it. I didn't love the corporate policies, and
Neither do we.
no, it's tough, and of course I think some of that's going to fade away with this DEI and stuff. But when you're asking so much of your employees, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, think about it. It'd be Christmas, the day after Christmas, you'd have 10 inches of snow and ice, and what do you got everyone doing out there? We're out there shoveling snow. Everybody else is home in their pajamas enjoying Christmas, and we're all out there working, right?
Yeah, thinking someone's coming in that day.
Well, and we would
Right.
we'd deliver cars all over for
Right.
customers with bows on them, and and so when you ask so much of your employees, I think you have to give a lot.
Yeah.
And that's why we did some of the things we did, with the dinners and the lunches, and
Right.
you try and build that camaraderie. But
Well, you felt you had a place. It was a home. It was a home away from home. One, you had a career. I mean, I didn't graduate from college either, right? So this was my career, right? And I'm learning. This is what I'm going to do, and I bought all in. So you felt like, okay, hey, with working with you guys, it was you got a purpose. Now I can move up here. If I do this well and learn this, I can move over here and do this job. Like you said, there's all these different jobs that you can learn in the car business.
Well, you came in the car business at 22, and I think from the day you got in, you were committed. Kyle spent 10 years doing something different, and then kind of got
Right.
into it being dissatisfied with what he did.
Yeah.
And then you find out in the car business, the great thing about it is every day is different.
Yeah.
You make whatever day you want, right?
Right.
And so I was, it was just an accident, right? The guy's going to give me a 68 Grand Prix. I
Right.
got a car, right?
Right.
And so that's how I got in the car business. But
Yeah.
I think that there's so much opportunity, and even with everything changing, cars aren't going away.
Right.
Well, we talk a lot about leadership, in this podcast a lot, and bringing that up. And, one thing that I've always admired, there's two things I've always admired with you is like you on Christmas Day, when the company had forced us to work, you're right there with us. And, there's a lot of guys that are out there now that don't, that aren't there with their employees, and they
Most
say,
of
hey,
them, right?
hey, employees, you go work, but I'm gonna go enjoy
Right.
my time with my family. And so I think, that causes
Friction.
there's friction, right?
Hey, I had 11 brothers and sisters, right? So you guys, the dealership was my family.
Right.
Really.
Right.
I only lived 2 minutes away, so I loved the people. We didn't all get along, right? But I didn't
But-
get along with all my brothers and sisters. You're from a big family.
Yeah.
And you just have disagreements, or sometimes you just don't work well together. But, I can remember during the ice storm, you were with me, and we lost power.
Yeah.
We had people, literally, families sleeping at the dealership. They had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So we had them sleeping in our customer lounge. I can remember Toyota came in. It was month-end close, and we needed to punch the retail delivery reports. We had no power. We had people sleeping in the showroom, and this guy's like, "Well, you're going to get these punched, right? Because inventory's tomorrow." I said, "We don't have any way." He pulled up an FJ Cruiser, backed it up to my door. We ran an extension cord from the FJ Cruiser into my office. We had a laptop, and sat there and punched the RDRs by candlelight with that laptop, and got the job done.
Yeah.
But that was cool about an FJ. You could plug right into it.
Yeah.
awesome.
There's all kinds of neat stories like that with
But
that.
the other thing is and I was there. There's not a job in the dealership that you wouldn't or didn't do.
I found it kind of exciting to learn the different jobs.
Well,
you
I
know?
mean, you got, you have a manager, somebody quit. You were right there. I watched you go up. I did watch you go. I don't know how expensive the suit was, but I watched you wash
Wash
cars.
cars.
In a suit,
yeah.
I think that's was probably out of my budget at the time for sure. So
You know, and a select few would recognize that and think, wow, that's pretty cool of the boss to do that. A lot of them didn't, you know.
Well,
it
I
just-
think the select few.
They weren't there, you know,
Well,
it was just a job.
we'd come up and help. I mean, that was if he's out there doing. I mean, it's kind of like the
Oh, I'd see you guys walking by in your suits, and they're like, "Oh, damn it!
all right, here we
I'm
go.
going to have to go over."
Let's go.
And then you hand your pack of papers to someone, and then you guys would be in
Yeah.
line helping me. So I loved it. I loved the people I worked with. Generally speaking, I was so fortunate in my career to think that 42 years I did that by accident.
Yeah.
And you know how good it was to me, my family. I mean, I helped support my mom and dad, brothers and sisters, and you know, because I was very blessed, and I just thank the good Lord that
You remember?
I was his
You remember what was the first thing we do on November? Let's say the first of the month. What did we always do in the departments?
forget about last month.
Well, right, it's over. So how'd we start doing that? Remember, we'd clean.
oh yeah,
I mean, we
yeah,
cleaned.
yeah, yeah.
That was we're cleaning up for the next month. Like, I mean, we all got together. We washed. When I say clean, I mean we're cleaning. We're washing the floors, the
Hey, we
baseboards,
cleaned bathrooms.
bathrooms.
Yep.
Every month we do that, and I didn't. You know, at the time you're like going, "What are we doing?" But then you realize we're cleaning the slate. It's a new month. We're starting over. Let's go. Everything's clean. Everything's tight. Got your goals set up. Now it's business again, and that's how we converted to.
So who taught me that was Bill Suntrip from Suntrip in St. Louis. So I'm that young guy, and he comes down, walks down the steps, and he's in a suit like I am. I got my $12 suit on from Sears or whatever, you know. And Tony, he said, "You ever been in the Navy?" I said, "No, sir." So he goes to the broom closet and he starts getting out the mop and the bucket, and he says, I'm gonna teach you how to swab the deck." So he's filling it up with water and putting his chemicals, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm getting out of this one, right? So I said to Mr. Suntrip, I said, "Mr. Suntrip, with all due respect, I didn't come here to mop floors. I'm a salesman." He looked at me, and he was like 6'3", had this big, deep German voice, black hair. He was all man. He was a good-looking guy, you know, and
Yeah.
very successful. He says, "So you're too good to mop the floors, Tony?" He says, "Don't worry, I'll do it." And I said, "No, sir." I said, "Give me that mop, please." And I've been that way ever since, because I remember him doing that and how offended he was that I thought I was too good to do that, but he was still going to do it, you know. And then the other thing, he used to buy lunch for us on Saturday, and I was late to eat because I'd been with a customer, and I go up there and there's a heel left, right? And then there's a new loaf of bread. So I take the heel, throw it in the trash, and open the new loaf of bread. He said, "Did you just throw that away?" I said, "It's a heel." He said, he reached in the trash can, got that thing out, and made a sandwich of it. I thought, this guy, I mean, I felt about this big, right? And I don't think I've ever done that again. So, you know, those are the lessons you learn along your career that maybe you don't recognize it that day.
Right.
Yeah.
But somewhere along the line, you're going to do something, and you're going to think, you know, that's why I did that, because of. So I was thankful. I mean, I've had guys threaten to fire me everything I ever did, right? You do that again, you grab hold of that bumper and get a ride home because you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. I mean, I heard that so many times. And, you know, eventually you get it until they're not telling you that as much, but you did learn to become a little bit thick-skinned and not take things personal. And I'm thankful that I had strict bosses.
Yeah.
I can't, my father was
You need 'em.
strict, and yep, I did. I sure
So
did.
here's a wild question I'll ask you. So let's say tomorrow you decide, hey, you get a phone call and they say we'd like you to take this store over, and you say, "Oh, I'm going to do it." What do you do when you first go into a store like that? And I mean, what's the first thing you think you start looking at?
Well, I mean, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but, you know, I did it twice, right? And so, you know, I had a meeting. I got in there. You know, usually you got the financial statement. And I always sat down. I'd go sit at a bar somewhere quiet. I'd get a couple napkins and a pen, and I'd sit down and go through, not with that statement, it's already there, but what I think it should be in my mind on a piece of paper, right? Now, I mean, there's fixed costs and things, you know what those are.
Sure.
But your advertising, personnel, blah, blah, blah. And then when I go there the next day, typically what I would do is, you know, I'd look at the lot and I'd rearrange the lot, right?
Right.
So you find out a lot by rearranging. You find out who wants to work, who doesn't work, who can drive a car, who can't drive a car, and who's just generally got a good and bad attitude, right? And then after that, you have your first meeting. And usually somebody gets fired in that meeting, not because you go in there, oh, I'm going to be a big shot and fire somebody, but you are taking over a deal. Everybody's opposed to you, and you can see the ones that are. I mean, there was one guy in particular, when I took over Toyota, he sat there and he slouched like this and arms crossed and his legs. And, you know, he just kind of glaring at me, and I stopped the meeting. I said, you want to sit up in that chair, please? He sat up like this and went on with the meeting, and he went on like this. And after that meeting, I said, come here. I said, you're fired. He said, what did I do? I said, I don't need you here. But I just knew the guy wasn't there to help me.
Right.
I was going to spend my time fighting that guy versus spending time with people that wanted to learn. And so later on, I think that guy did come to work for him. He wound up being a decent guy, maybe not the kind of guy that would want to work for me, but so you just kind of, so you catch their attention, right? And now all of a sudden you're gonna kind of see who's with you and who's really not.
Right.
And so the ones not, you're gonna give them time, right? You hope that they're gonna come around. But unfortunately, not all of them do. And you just got to be willing to make those changes, right? Just like what Trump's going to do to our economy, he's going to go in there and clean it up, right? And there's going to be some tough choices made, but they need to be made, right? And so I think once you do that, you establish control to who's in charge here. And now they start seeing your vision, your direction, what you are and what you're not going to tolerate, right? And I think that's important for people to see, because everybody's got pet peeves. But I think that your employees definitely have to know what your expectations are, what your vision is. Otherwise, how are they going to buy into what you're doing?
Right.
Sure.
100%. So out of all your partners, who was your guy that you looked up to? I mean, when you went to those meetings, you're like, wow, that guy's smoking it or doing. I mean, he's.
Well, when I was new, everybody.
Right.
Right. I was so intimidated going in there. I was.
But you became
38 years
yeah,
old.
you were one of the senior partners before you left.
Yes,
right?
when I left, I was a senior partner, and believe it or not, in this town, Reliable Toyota, Lexus, BMW, Audi, we were one of the top 5 stores in the company. You know, so we really, you know, it was a $26 million a year store when we took it over. It was right at $150 million when I retired. But and they've blown those numbers away today. I think they've doubled them, tripled them, or I don't know. With COVID, I mean, everything got crazy, but. So initially everybody, but then you see just like partners, you know, there's good partners, bad partners, you know, maybe they had a good location, they had a good franchise, they had a lucky streak in between, but it's consistency, right? And 25 years is a lot of consistency, and we were very consistent on those 20, we consistently grew,
Right.
you know, we did, but there were stores. So, and to answer your question, probably my, most of my, there was a couple of them, right? Daryl McCutcheon would be one. John O'Malley, who's now deceased, you know, he had Camelback Toyota. And John was just a classy guy, and he ran his store very much as we ran our store. A lot of long-term employees. Bill Atkins, I didn't manage like him, but he's been very, very successful, and you know, one of the more successful partners. So I don't know. There really weren't any bad ones. Some were better than others. I was just immensely proud that I got chosen to be one of them, you know. I mean, what an honor, you know, when you'd go somewhere and they say, what do you do? And I'm a partner of Cecil Van Tile, and they'd be like, oh, you know, you'd get a little bit different
service
respect.
or what, right.
Now, maybe the day you retire, they don't give 2 hoots about you, but while you were there, you were certainly
Taken care of.
Well, I think you've.
well, you were treated with respect, you know. At least you got the door open, and now what you did from there is up to you, you know.
Well, that store, I think there's a lot of things that, I mean, you can still.
Gotta get ready for that.
Okay, I think there's. I know you retired. How long have you been retired now?
6 years.
You still have your mark on that store. You can see it. I mean,
Well,
it's
a lot of
it's-
the management staff are my old managers.
Yeah,
They
so-
don't really, we don't have relationships with them, but you know, I've stayed away from the store. The new partner really didn't want me coming in. He's trying to establish his own deal, and so it's been 6 years, and you know, I think that there's nothing that makes me more proud to know everybody's successful. You know,
Right.
they can say I hate that son of a gun, but you know, as they're feeding their families and doing,
Yeah, you did your job.
that's the bottom line.
I mean, you did
right?
your job, right?
Yeah.
You developed them. So that's neat. that's a neat legacy. I mean, that's
Well, about your deal here, you guys talked to me about this early on, and, that was a big challenge, a big undertaking.
right.
A year into the deal, you've got 2 locations.
We're still learning. We've got a long way to go.
Well, you'll always be learning,
Yeah,
right? You'll never stop. And
right.
I think that the young people that you've surrounded yourself with, more importantly, probably is what you've done in your communities, right? In Nixa, and now what you're going to do in Springfield. I mean, you've been huge with the Catholic organization, right?
Yeah.
For a small used car lot, I mean, I think that says a lot, right? So you guys are. I think you're going about it the right way.
Well, appreciate that. That's nice of you to say. I mean, we wouldn't be here without some of your leadership and the qualities that you gave us. I mean, you learn, just like you said, you learn from a lot of people. And I think at times sometimes you don't know that it's a learning moment when it's really a learning moment. You know what I'm saying?
When we tell them, what was this thing? Don't listen to the delivery, listen to the message, right? Was one of the things, because my delivery was not very good a lot of times, but the message was.
Well, I'll tell you a delivery you gave me that I will remember.
What's that?
This is a funny one, if you remember this one.
Oh,
Huh?
maybe.
This is a good one. It was remember the Halloween one with the pumpkin?
Oh, yeah.
I learned that pumpkins, when you have them sit out for a long time, they'll bounce and you can catch them. I never knew.
Sometimes, unless they're rotted.
Sometimes.
So Matt was my new manager, and it was mid-November. November was always a slow month in the
Right.
car business, and I'm getting a little nervous, getting a little fired up, and I'm looking around the store, and we still got hay bales and pumpkins up, and we're mid into November. And so I'm like, Matt, come here. And I take him out front, and I'm like, what is all this stuff? I said, why is this stuff here? And I was so mad. And of course, he's 6'6", and I'm 5'11", and I pick up this pumpkin, and I'm like, get rid of this stuff. And I throw it on the ground at his feet, and it bounces up, and he catches it.
The whole intention was for the break and be
Oh,
all over.
yeah. I was trying to make it.
But we both knew that.
Point.
So I catch it. The funniest thing about the whole thing is I catch it, and we both do this.
I was speechless.
We both looked at each other like, did that just happen? Like what? Yeah. And then you're like, just get in my office. Right?
Get rid of the stuff.
Right.
So,
and
it's been fun, watching a lot of the younger people grow up. And, like I said, I had 11 brothers and sisters. My father was extremely rigid with us, and so you tend to manage as you grow up. And so, again, I'm thankful my father was that way. I'm thankful that I've had bosses that were very demanding and would hold you to high standards,
Sure.
whatever their expectations were. And if you've got a boss that's not doing that, you've got the wrong boss.
yeah. 100%.
Honestly, I mean, you might say, oh, they're great. I used to hear people say, why are you quitting them? Well, he's such a nice guy, but I'm not making any money,
Yeah.
right? I thought,
Yeah, or he's not learning anything. I mean,
Right.
I think today, that's what I'm saying. I call it the COVID effect. You've got all these people in these higher positions because they had to just find people, and they think because they sold 15 cars during COVID, they know what they're doing. And, they sit in their office all day. They don't come out and talk to, help their employees or do anything.
Hey, should we throw another log in the fire?
Yeah.
It's been quite a fire. I've had such a night sitting here fireside. You missed it all.
No, I've been focused on you.
No, I'm trying.
Right? Well, how long have we been on here? A couple hours? Yeah. So
How long are your podcasts on?
about that. I mean, he
I didn't want to take up too. I didn't know what your time.
No, we
was.
schedule these on Fridays and have guys positioned, and we can. That's the difference right now. Like,
So is this live now?
no,
How come? Why don't you do them live?
that's what we were thinking about, putting them on Facebook Live and just do them.
They're
So we're gonna
doable.
work on it.
Does that scare you to think they're live?
No, but we need some more work to be done in here.
Well, would a customer want to sit and listen to this for an hour and a half?
Well, I think
is really the key.
I'll tell you what
right?
would have happened. I would tell you what would happen today if we went live with Tony Stubblefield on Facebook. I don't think any cars be sold in town. Everybody be watching you. I mean, you've got that
Well,
many.
let's see. Let's find out what happens.
Put it on.
Hey, we might get paid.
That'd be great.
Hey, we're gonna go. What did Reynolds say it was? We went viral, Tony.
I got
1,000 views. He's like, oh, we're viral.
I think it'd be great to get you.
This guy's older than me, right?
I think it'd be great to have you and Mike get all three of you guys, all three guys that stayed here for 20. How long you were?
Riser
and Riser on the same podcast, and we'll just sit back and listen. We won't even have to ask any questions. These three would go at it. It'd be entertaining.
Yeah, well, you put Reynolds on here, it will be.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I'd like to do. I mean, I think that'd
And
be
you
kind
could
of fun.
talk to them about what are the differences between the two stores.
Well,
How would you describe the difference between your store and that store? You know,
Well, I work for both of you, really,
Right,
and
right,
so
sure.
it two
but
different.
let Mike and I tell you.
Yeah,
because you're the one that witnessed it, right?
Yeah.
So what it's. I think a lot of times people, and I just read this the other day about things to talk about your teenage son, right?
Right.
And questions to ask them, things that might be on their mind. I thought, it seems common sense, but I've never asked them that stuff, So I don't remember the questions at the moment, but
Right.
I sent them to Carrie, so I'll have to get them from her and give them a shot.
It's been amazing though for 20. If you've been here 25 years, I mean that store when I came in the 90s, and I remember
Came in 97, right?
Yeah, and I remember. When we were building the body shop, they were building it at that time. I think
Chris
B&W were
Butcher.
building. Yeah, Chris Butcher. You were building. That's how I got in. That's Chris Butcher. I was a real estate agent and trying to sell real estate, and I happened to. I don't know how I met. He called in, and I happened to close him over the phone to list their house in Ravenwood. It was a $500,000 house in the 90s. So I don't know what that house would be worth today, but
Do you remember his house off F Highway?
yeah,
So I drove by there not long ago.
yeah. They built that.
They wound up moving away and going to Arizona. But I really like Chris.
Yeah, he was.
He's a good guy.
And then what else was I going to sit there? And there's so many stories.
Remember when we had Woody and Janet as our spokesperson?
Yeah, I remember that.
They've got their own podcast.
Yeah,
now.
maybe we could get on that one.
We could get that. You should have them on this one.
Yeah, we could. We probably.
No, they were great. We loved them. Loved them as spokesperson. Jan, of course, drove our product, and Woody drove a RAV4.
Yeah.
We really, Mickey Gilly, good customer of ours,
Remember staying up late. So back then you had the newspaper ads, right? And we'd have 2 pages, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we'd sit there and we'd sit there. Yeah, listen, this is cool. We'd sit there at night, and we had to sit there and make the ad, right? And so they would kind of start off, I think, or did they give you, or did you just start building it? But
So we used to write everything on a legal sheet.
Right, every car.
We'd put the stock number, the year, make, the model, the color, the list, the discount, incentives, and the sale price.
Right.
That's a lot of information.
Right.
On 400 cars.
right, yeah, it takes
So
forever.
we would sit there. Well, we used to write it all out. So then they finally said, okay, we're going to buy you a Macintosh computer so you can do it.
Right.
Right? They're transferring their expense to me.
Right.
So then we started doing it. Well, we kind of liked it because it gave us a little more control over our ads. And then we started designing them. We started
Yeah.
literally building them. But anyway, so there was one night, and I ran home. I had dinner. I came back.
I remember.
You were
this
there.
night.
We sat there till midnight, punching everything in.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if it was then or the next morning, but somehow we lost everything.
We forgot to hit save.
I didn't hit save.
Yeah. We forgot to hit save.
400 freaking cars.
So we had- he
and
was-
they're due there at noon.
I've never seen him so calm in my life. He's like, Matt. He was so mad. Matt, we're gonna have to we're gonna have to put all this stuff back in. And I'm like, here. He was running the store, and I go, here. I'll sit over there and I'll just start doing it.
Yeah, we didn't know really tab
Right.
and all that
Yeah.
stuff. We didn't really know much about typing and
Yeah.
computers, but we had to have it done by noon the next day, remember? And she was sitting out there. And
Oh,
she's
yeah.
like, Tony, it's the deadline. We got to go. And we got it done.
Yeah.
But, man, it was stressful.
Yeah.
We had lots of fun times.
Well, how about the used car? I mean, the used car indoor sale. I mean, that was phenomenal. I mean, that was.
Well, that's how we clean the body shop once a
Yeah.
year, right? We'd take everything out, scrub everything down, then we'd pull all those cars inside. And that was a fun sale. We didn't do all that great. We'd sell 30 cars or so.
In one day, I mean, that's not bad.
But
just
that
used.
was 30 sales commissions for your employees in January. And plus, we had the hot dogs, popcorn. We had, it's just fun, right? And so.
Well, it was fun the night before. Everybody's sticking around. The tents are going up. You're moving the cars around. You're out there saying, okay, I want this car here, and you're learning. You got salespeople, you got mechanics out there, you've got the wash bay kids out there, you got,
We
parts
had everybody
people.
involved.
Everybody's out there helping us load cars up or loading them up, and then we'd meet. I don't know what time we start open the sale up, 8:30 maybe, or maybe 9. But we'd come in the next morning at 8 o'clock, and then you're explaining the sale, and you're going through, okay, here's the things that we're going to do. And, we had certain guys, I was, desking deals, doing finance, doing turn. I mean, it was just the show, man. It was fun.
Well, you had people never sold cars, selling cars.
Right.
They'd get a commission like, oh my gosh, it's more than I made for 2 weeks. You
Right.
know? And so it's just, you'd hear all the problems that employees go through.
Yeah.
One time I sat down with my entire office staff, and they were all struggling. I knew they were all struggling paying bills. And so I sat down with them and I said, what's your monthly budget? Not one of them had a clue.
Huh.
So we sat down and figured out what the rent, utilities, car payment, gas, and all that stuff. And I thought, well, there ain't one of them that can afford to live on what we're paying them. And we gave all of them raises, right?
Right.
And I think the smallest raise we gave that day was $4 an hour, but the store was doing well. They were long-term employees, but you felt horrible because I was doing well. And every month they were going deeper and deeper in the hole, and you could see it. You thought, okay, this just doesn't work
Right.
out well,
But see, they don't do that now. That thing now, it's all about. It's like this on these used cars. They're packing so much stuff on these used cars.
You can't make
you can't make any commission on them, and then they're harping at you because you're dollar per. I'm like, well, wait a minute, we've got.
So what's the key saying? What's the key saying we used to say? Pigs get fat.
Hogs get slaughtered, right?
Right.
But it was frustrating because you're sitting there going, hey, you want me to run, $3,000, whatever it is, but have me run these dollar per copies, but $1,800 of it is fluff that didn't need to be on the car. It just, I guess now I've seen some of these dealers now, Tony, they have addendum on their used cars. They're having them pay for the inspection, right? So here's the price of the car. It's $17,995 right on the internet. Now when you come in, it's plus this.
Are you kidding me?
No, they're
On top of a $500 processing fee.
yeah. So it's
Let's talk about processing fee real quick,
Yeah.
because your customers are paying for it, right?
Right.
And I think they should know how their government works
Right.
a little bit, right?
Right.
So when I got in the car business, if there was a processing fee, it might be $10, $15. Then inflation, right?
right.
And so when I moved down here, there was no processing fee, but we put a $49. I'm sorry, I wasn't talking in this thing.
No, you're right.
Do I need to start that over?
No, you're good.
So we put a $49 processing fee, and not every dealer in town charge it, but we have expenses, right? You get the title work, you got all the things you have to do. So we charged $49,
Right.
and then it went to $79, and more dealers were adding it on. Some were at $179, and it was all over the place,
Right.
right? So then some attorney here in town, right,
Right.
files a class action lawsuit against all the car dealers for acting as legal representation by charging a doc fee or processing fee.
Right.
And so we got sued along with every other boat, car, and motorcycle dealer in the state of Missouri. We all got sued. Now, okay, maybe I'm speaking out. Maybe someone didn't, but generally speaking,
The bigger dealers
everybody
obviously
was
did, right? Because they've
getting
got
sued,
the money, right?
and we got sued, right? I think it was $750,000, right? So it's a Saturday. I'm working the store, and someone brings a deal over from our Lexus store, and I happen to see it. I was in the finance office, and I saw the name, and I thought, that name looks familiar. I said, where's that customer? They said, in Lexus. I said, that's the guy that's suing us. So, in a class action lawsuit, they run an ad, they look for somebody to raise their hand, and then that becomes the plaintiff,
Right.
right? And then other people sign on. So this guy didn't even know that he was suing me. So I literally walk over there with the buyer's order, and I said, if I introduced myself, I said, if you don't mind me asking, you're suing me. What are you doing buying a car here if you're suing me? He said, I'm not suing you. I said, no, here's the lawsuit. And they offered to pay him $1,000, I think, to do that, right? And so the end result of that is we wound up settling. I think we did settle for $750. It cost us a lot of money. Well, what do you think happens to that? It gets passed right on to the consumer.
Right.
And so the end result of that, the state changed the law that now it's $499 is the processing fee in the state of Missouri. I think everybody charges that, don't they?
No, you have when
Or they can charge up to that?
Up to that.
But most of your dealers, I believe, are
They're
there,
taking
right?
they're taking the most.
And then the state takes a percentage of
Right,
that now.
right.
So we went from, it was optional, some none, some 49, some 179, but you had a choice. If you didn't like it, you could go to the next guy and buy a
Right.
car, right? But now they've all got it. And so at the end of the day, the class action lawsuit cost, I don't know how many cars get sold in Missouri a year,
Right.
but say it, I don't know, just say 1 million cars, right? 1 million times 500,000 is coming directly out of consumer pockets because it's now forced and mandated by our state, and they get a piece of that.
Right.
So just kind of when you get these things on class action lawsuits to sign up, sometimes you don't know what you're signing up
Right.
for, and it costs all of us, right?
Right. Well, it's 100%. Now we've got one too, but we've done something a little bit different with it because we knew we went through that. The state gets a portion of that, and what they're doing that for is they're trying to create a computer system or have the money to build this computer system.
Every time we give a government more money, they
Right.
get us deeper in debt, right?
100%. They're probably using this money for something else. Okay. And but anyway, so when we use ours, we use ours for to run out of power. We try to donate back to charity. We kind of we pick a charity. That's what we've used it for.
Yeah, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I mean,
Sure.
we charge it. But
Sure.
my point is that it became a law, right?
Right.
It became now a forced thing.
They learned how to make money off of it. So what they
Yeah,
did.
and as everything, it winds up ultimately costing the consumer. So anytime you defraud somebody, right, it's wind up to all of us pay for it, right?
Right.
Because they've got to pick it up somewhere.
Right.
And so, maybe that's just a lesson for all of us to learn to
100%.
work together.
Well, it looks like we got to wrap this thing up. So anyway, pleasure talking to you. We're gonna have a part 2. I think we're gonna.
We could probably
Yeah.
talk for days about.
Yeah, we'll see.
but-
We'll do this again if you don't mind.
Hey, really appreciate it. I wish you
Yeah.
guys the best of luck. I think you do awesome things, and I like some of the young people you guys are hiring and bringing along and developing. I've got a 15-year-old son, so I'm really, really impressed with some of the younger people I've run in today. It's like we took a dip,
Right.
and now the younger generation coming up is seeing it and grabbing a hold of those opportunities. I'm glad to see that.
Yeah, it's important.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you, sir.
All right.